Warning. This video blog or vlog may contain harsh language and opinions that are not necessarily in line with YouTube or its partners or affiliates. YouTube does not openly endorse the content of this vlog. All opinions are expressly those of Ranting Ramsay and do not reflect on the opinions or values of YouTube, its affiliates, or its parent or partner companies.
Greetings, Internet people. Ranting Ramsay here. How are you all doing today? I'm going to try to be as concise as possible because I have a lot to cover and I don't want to ramble any more than necessary. The only bit of diversion I'm going to say at the very beginning is that I know this is not the subject that I promised my next video will be on, but I kind of thought this was pertinent enough to go ahead and do this ahead of time. Also, I'm still doing the work/research that I need for the other video I said I was going to do. So, what we're talking about today is I just finished watching a two-segment, 30-minute video on a webpage that I am linking you to in the description that I just couldn't really stay silent about because I just thought it was absolutely beautiful. It was wonderful. It was one of the best things ever. And I will say at this point, a lot of the things that I'm going to say to you are paraphrases or maybe even some kind of direct quotes from some of the things they say in the video. And I'm using that to intrigue you or incite you, as the case may be, to go and watch the linked video because I think it's very pertinent to anyone who lives in America. And if not, maybe it's interesting enough to you anyway. But it basically deals with the concept of the American dream and the just absolute and utter bullshit lie that it has become due to the banking system and the money system that we're all forced to deal with. So I've got a lot of notes written down here. I know people think that I usually do a lot of just turn on the camera and say what's on my mind, and 80%, 95% of the time, somewhere between there. You're absolutely right, but in this particular case, I wrote notes down for myself to make sure that I stayed on point to say exactly what I wanted to say. And I'm going to kind of cut into about maybe 1/3 of the way into where the first video on the linked page starts. But it's the point that I thought was just the most interesting and kind of also at the same time the best way to get your attention. So, basically the first thing I have written down to say is that, did you know that the Federal Reserve is not a federal institution, as it were? It is a private bank. Not only is it a private bank, but a private bank that is not even our elected officials or government agencies or anyone like that or the general public are allowed within its doors to check, or even to check its record keeping. The Federal Reserve is basically shut off completely for anyone who does not work for the Federal Reserve. So you can't double check their records or anything like that for the most part. That the only information that you have about the Federal Reserve is the information the Federal Reserve itself has decided to release to you. Since we're coming up on tax time, I'm going to divert for just a tiny bit before continuing and mention that the IRS. The IRS was a conception by banks that Woodrow Wilson signed into law, as the second half of the linked video mentions. And he agreed to do this before he was even elected into office. So, yeah, the IRS sucks for obvious reasons, but watch the video for more reasons as to why it sucks. And it kind of calls into question the entire system of American government, even at a time when Republican and Democrat alike seems to claim the intentions of the nation's leaders and legislators was pure, meaning that back in the days of our founding fathers, so to speak, even Republicans and Democrats can generally agree on the most part that our founding fathers had pure intentions and this, that, and the other. I call total and absolute bullshit on the claim, vehemently. I think that the intentions of our founding fathers have been absolutely and totally misconstrued over time. And once again, the videos that are linked in the description will explain further as to what it is. But anyway, getting back on track, does anybody see a problem with the Federal Reserve being a completely and totally privately owned and controlled institution? with all the blathering of "that's unconstitutional" that uneducated American citizens have been making lately, that is one claim they should be making that they aren't, because they've been duped. And the claim is the whole Federal Reserve is unconstitutional, because the Federal Reserve, being a privately owned and controlled bank, is kind of it having the ability to control money is unconstitutional. And here's what I mean by that is our Treasury is supposed to create our money, but now the Fed controls the printing of America's money. Nobody gets a single solitary dollar that the Fed didn't print in like the last, what, I don't know, 3 decades at least, if not longer than that. Let me summarize the problem. The Federal Reserve is a private, independent bank that has the ability to dictate when and how much U.S. currency is printed. How thus dictating how much is in circulation, and thus dictating its worth of the money, that is. They print the money, and then they loan it to the government, and then they charge the government interest, and the government taxes you to pay for the interest. That's right, a portion of your taxes, if not all of them, are going to pay for the interest on the loans that the Federal Reserve, which I remind you is a private bank, has made to the U.S. government. And to reiterate, most of your taxes, if not all, go to your government, but not to your government, but to the Federal Reserve to pay the interest on the loans from the Federal Reserve. That's right, the idea that your taxes go to pay for your roads and your federal regulation and other government services is basically a lie. The money you pay to the government only pays the interest on the loans to the government from the Fed Reserve, and the government takes more loans from the Fed Reserve every year than they did in the previous. So what all of that can lead to is banks loaning out more money in the form of credit than they have in their vaults to cover. In the simplest terms, let us say that a bank, these are watered down numbers, completely watered down for simplicity's sake. Let's say that a bank has received, let us say that a bank has received $10,000 in deposits from its members. That is all the money it should have to work with, $10,000. That's it. But the bank can make loans of more than $10,000 because it can take a loan from the Federal Reserve. And aside from that, unless every person who has deposited money in the bank wants it all back at the same time, the bank is safe. But if a, quote, run is made on the bank, that is, most of or all of the people who have put money into that put the money in at the same time decide they want their physical money back in cash form, the bank may not have to be able to cover that money. In other words, they may have loaned out $15,000 worth of money when they only had $10,000, and now everyone wants their cumulative $10,000 back, but the bank doesn't physically actually have it. This is actually an example of the kind of bank run that we saw at the beginning of the Great Depression in the early 20s. The banks were fucking around with our money, and when everybody wanted their cash back because they realized they needed their money physically in hand, the banks couldn't give it out. So, really, in essence, the same kind of shit is going on today, save for the people pulling out their money. People aren't all rushing to the banks to pull out all of their money because they've been fed the lie that their money is safe in the banks. Whereas if all of the people who have money deposited in banks said, you know what, fuck this whole stupid electronic money system, and wanted their physical, actual cash back, if every single U.S. citizen went to every bank they have accounts at and everything and said, give me every last cent of my money, there is a very extremely good chance that the banks would not be able to cover that money and would have to take loans from the Federal Reserve to cover that actual physical money, but even still would not have the physical money in hand to hand to you for all of the money you have in your accounts at the end of the day. There was some internet conspiracy or plan or whatever that we all decided on this date, at this exact time, every single one of us is going to go to the bank and withdraw every single cent that we are physically capable of withdrawing to have all of our money in physical cash format. I guarantee you that almost every single bank in the country would run out of physical, actual cash money to hand you before noon. That shouldn't happen. They should have every single freaking fucking cent that you physically deposited on hand, physically, able to hand back to you. But because of the way the banking system works, that's not how it is. Now, people confusing this kind of control of wealth and commerce as the American dream really, really need to go and watch the two-part video that I have linked in the description. I have only pulled the major points from the first half of this 30-minute video for discussion in hopes that it will either intrigue or incite you enough to go and watch the full movie. I did minor research on the major talking points of the video and found that it is true, though obviously interpreted for common understanding. But I welcome you to go and do your own research against the points made here and in the linked videos. Once again, the points I make here are watered down, just hollow shells of the valid and real points that once again, the videos, the page, and the link description talks about. In the comments section and messages and everything, by all means, you are more than free to express a contradictory viewpoint, but it will be ignored unless you've got something to back it up with. So if you want to tell me that all this is just bullshit and blah, 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 which would counter the research that I've done and the viewpoints in the video, which were obviously based on the research, because the research I've done backs up the viewpoint. Anyway, so unless you have something to back up your contradictory viewpoint, I really won't listen to you at all. I won't pay any attention to you. I would consider you a troll fishing for attention in the form of saying something contradictory to what I'm saying now in hopes that it'll get me pissed off and bring attention to you through responding. No, I will not respond to you unless you bring valid data to contradict the viewpoints that were made in the videos and vicariously made by me here in this video. So there you go, there you have it. The American dream is a fucking lie. The Fed Reserve is not a federal institution, and the IRS is a bunch of bullshit created by Woodrow Wilson because he was in cahoots with banks. It's all a bunch of bullshit. You need to educate yourselves. Do you understand this? And then we need to figure out what the fuck we're going to do about it. Because short of or aside from making runs on the banks, there's actually really nothing we can fucking do about this whole situation because it's so absolutely ingrained in our culture, in our society, and in our economies that unless we all decide that fuck it, we're going to fight, there's absolutely nothing we can do. And the only form of being able to fight really that we can do is taking all of our money out all at the same fucking time and proving that the system is flawed and that the banks will not be able to give us all of our fucking money back all at the same fucking time. So there you go, there you have it. I'm Ranting Ramsay. Feel more than free to watch the videos linked in the description. In fact, you fucking need to. And if you want to fight me on this, if you want to contradict me or call me wrong, you better become prepared to come with some fucking facts or details, because I will ignore you otherwise. That is all.
Hey, did you get all that, man?
Douche.